As veterans, we struggle to fit in, taught to never let feelings win. Lost in a world full of fear and pain, we all have hung our heads in shame. When we look up, we see hands reaching out. There is so much support about it, comes from above and others around. Please take a hand and rise from the ground. Stand up and fight for your life. Walk away from negativity. Don't give in to strife. Show up for yourself. Find your voice. Keep moving forward. You have a choice. Give compassion for the child inside. Healing pain, let hope reside. Lost you will no longer be, then you can help set others free. Now speak up and with us share the tools that make pain easy to bear. Advocate for others to lighten their load. Use your voice and join our show on Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie. We heal out loud, PTSD to advocacy.
And what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys for joining us on another great episode of Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie. How are we doing today, Marie?
I am exhausted and I'm doing good. You know,
Huh?
yesterday was a very emotionally busy day. You guys will be watching this, way after, but we had Memorial Day yesterday and we did our very first live stream for Memorial Day. And before that, I had another Memorial Day live stream. And then throughout the day was just talking to a couple different battle buddies and having some good conversations. So, sorry. That was Monday. Today is Wednesday, but yesterday was also another busy day where I was just doing a whole lot of networking and stuff like that. So my days are just, even in my journal last night, I was writing like it was Monday. The weirdest thing.
Yeah, you're off. You're off, I see. Okay.
I am exhausted.
But hey, you know what? Want to do a little bit of a buddy check out there for everybody. You know, it's as easy as, hey, Marie, how are you doing today? You know, and just to hear how others are doing and have a little conversation. Sometimes we just pick up and we want to text people. I don't feel like texting is always the most beneficial way of getting through to others. I mean, I think that text can be mistaken. It's just a sentence. You can say things and it can come out really good and you're not feeling good. But when you talk to someone and you hear their voice, it comes off a lot better. So, if you're struggling out there, guys, please don't forget there's the crisis lifeline down there. 988 Veterans Press 1. And if they don't help you, reach out to the VA, the veteran. They have plenty of hotlines out there. And now you can Google, talk to ChatGPT. There's all kinds of things that you can do for resources nowadays if you're really struggling. And you also have people like Marie and myself that you can also reach out to and just shoot us an email. And just if you want someone to listen to you, we're more than willing to listen to you guys. But we need everybody here. And that's the most important thing. And after, going through Memorial Day and all the losses, and some of them are on the battlefield, and some of them are here on our own soil where they lost their own battle to themselves or to someone else tragically took their life. But we don't want to keep, adding to the numbers, right? So let's check on one another. If you have a buddy, a best friend, a family member, someone out there that you love and adore, take this as an opportunity right now as you're listening to this to say hello to them and give them a good check. Maybe this is that little like message for you to check on somebody today. But let's go ahead and do what we do before we get this show on the road and have an amazing guest lined up. We're going to go ahead and let Marie read us amazing poem as usual.
Before we do that, I just want to double check that you can hear me okay. I had to change some of my sound settings. Are we good to go?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you're not hearing yourself anymore.
I'm still, I can't figure out what's going on because it's still happening, but as long as you guys can hear me okay.
Okay. All right. Well, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, guys. Today, I am going to be reading a poem called Post Regret. It's one I wrote on the 7th. And it's the idea that, sometimes after I have written a poem or after I have written a post or after I've sent a text and it's something that has to do with positivity, sometimes I go into this immediate like regret or guilt that I sent it. And I start really wondering, or like even after the podcast, after I'm sharing my story and sharing a message of hope and anytime I say the word God, I start feeling uncomfortable, like, oh, somebody's not going to like it. And I start doubting myself. And I know it's the negativity and it's the shame and the guilt, from my past and not feeling like my voice matters. And, I even just had this conversation with somebody the other day about talking about doing speaking gigs, as some of you may or may not know, I am looking into becoming a government contractor to do some speaking gigs, on different bases or other opportunities. And, on Saturday, I'll be doing a speaking gig for a youth-led initiative that's all about mental health awareness. And anyways, I start getting into this mindset that my voice doesn't matter. And I start feeling like I'm in a bind again. And anything that I say is not going to be taken the right way. And I just get blocked and I start feeling overwhelmed. And so I wrote this poem just about that idea of feeling that regret of what I've said and that guilt and that shame. And so if you struggle like I do with getting your voice out and getting the message of hope out and then feeling uncomfortable with it because you're not quite comfortable in your skin or not understanding that God's going to lead your message to whoever needs to hear it. If you're struggling like that, then please listen to this poem and recognize that God's going to do what he needs to do, regardless of what people do. And so you're going to say what he wants you to say, and he's going to let people hear what he wants them to hear. And sometimes it has nothing to do with what you wrote or what you've said. It's just what's going on in their heart. So, post regret. When you're sharing messages of positivity, is it sometimes followed by insecurity? Do you have post regret wishing it never sent, fearful of the places it could have been sent? Do you feel you have to force where it needs to go, almost like you are putting on a show? Do you get overcome by anxiety when anyone responds with negativity? Sometimes the opposition will make you doubt your worth, like your voice does not matter unless approved by all the earth. Yet that is just not true. Those that need to hear will hear. The ones that disapprove may be clouded by their fear. Never really ready to accept the things you say. So please keep sharing hope's message anyway. It really is in God's hands when you send your post. He'll get it where it is needed the most. Releasing control, sharing what feels right, magic things can happen when guided by the light. Even if it lands where someone lashes out, God will help you heal from any such fallout. Others will accept it, and some may be saved. They'll walk the path of change you may have paved. True messages of hope are hard to forget. If you give control to God, you won't have post regret.
All right. Thank you so much. And, just so everybody knows, just because we do talk about religion on here or God or whatever, that's, you don't let that def- deter you from the show in any way, shape, or form. It shouldn't make you feel uncomfortable. What we're not going to do on here is preach to you guys or make anybody try to convert or do anything of the such.
I'm just sharing my own beliefs and my own understandings of my higher power. And we just encourage you to find whatever higher power that is for you. Some form of positivity, universe, God, nature, whatever you want to call it, something that can help you find peace. And sometimes that's just a group of other people, and that's okay too. And sometimes it's just your, what do they say? The ego and the id, I believe. And the id is just your higher self that just helps you feel better.
And Marie, when she shares her poem, this is from her heart. This is from her feelings. This is from her, what is helping her in her journey, right? Or has helped her through her journey. So just everybody, like I said, don't be all uncomfortable. I know some people, man, you just get all, weirded out because someone says God or, talks about religion. People on here are going to talk about their views, their values, and we don't shut anybody down. That's just how we are. Everybody has their right to feel however they want to feel, believe how they want to feel. And like I said, this is we all fought for our right of freedom of speech and to, to talk and speak. So that's what the show is all about. But let's go ahead and get our next guest on. We've made them wait long enough, and we got a long show punched ready for us. So Marie, go ahead and give us a nice little introduction, and let's get it going.
Yeah. So today I'm super excited. We have Jack Hager, and Jack was supposed to be on with us a few months ago, but as you guys know, I had my mental health stuff going on, right? Housing stuff going on, and then I had my surgery. So things kind of went crazy. So we're so glad that he decided to come back. And so Jack Hager brings a diverse background to the many schools, rallies, camps, prisons, and churches he speaks in throughout the year. He was born into a military family and traveled a lot. He graduated in California. He, instead of taking scholarships, enlisted in the Army, following tours of duty in Korea, Germany, and Vietnam. Jack was honorably discharged. He disenchanted and heavily involved in alcohol and other drugs. Jack spent the next few months wandering the Marshall and Hawaiian Islands. Returning to West Coast, he began a short career of criminal activity. He was arrested in 1973, Whoa. And he read a book that helped him confronted with the claims of the Lord Jesus Christ. Responding to the gospel, Jack committed to his life to Christ in 1974. So he had some parole and Bible institutes, and he served as an evangelist with the Kansas City Youth for Christ. Lots of 1,400 school assembly programs that he was a part of. He considers it's not my fault to be an obscenity. I like that. I like how he wrote that. It's personal responsibility is the theme of his schooling program. He's preached in 200 prisons and jails. He has done a whole lot. I'm not going to read all of his stuff on here because I want to hear him speak about what he's doing. So I'm just kind of looking in here.
Yeah, it's that high site.
Yeah. And so he has done a lot of different ministries. In June of 2023, Jack was diagnosed with multiple myeloma and kidney disease. It limits his travel and has caused him to readjust some aspects of his ministry. As he says, God remains good all the time. He is married to Jane. They have 3 sons and 1 daughter. The youngest children were adopted at birth. Army brat, alcoholic, drug user, dealer, vet, ex-con. All these and more have been descriptive of Jack Hager, but the one that is current and the one he prefers is a new creation in Christ. Jack, we are awesome. So excited to have you here. Come on.
I am thrilled to be here, and I really like the poem, by the way. Hope is such a good word.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to the show, Jack. It is an honor to have you on, and boy, have you lived quite the life, and we're excited to hear all about it. So, go ahead and take us through your life and journey, and where you're at.
Well, as Marie mentioned, I am an Army brat, one of those. Born in Cambridge, Mass., had the good sense to leave when I was 9 months old, went to Germany for 5 years, came back to the States, moved every 6 or 7 months. My parents were functioning alcoholics. Uh, I used to think I grew up in a screwed up family. Then I went to college and found out we were dysfunctional, because that sounds so much better than screwed up. Saying that, I do not blame my parents for the choices I made. We're responsible for our choices, then our choices make us. When I was about 11 years old, we moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. Shortly after that, I committed the first theft that I thefted. My brother was 11 years older than I. He was in the military. He came home, got drunk, passed out on the couch. My parents were out partying. I went over to the couch, and on the end table was his wallet. I looked at the wallet. I looked at my brother. I picked up the wallet. There were about, as I remember, $200 or $300 in it. But if I knew if it took all the money, I'd get popped. So I just took $80, and of course I got away with it. That was so easy. I started stealing from friends at school, started stealing from enemies at school. Eventually got a pistol, started ripping off stop and robs, junk like that. Eventually got busted twice when I was a kid, and both times, unfortunately, they do the same thing they do nowadays: slap me on the wrist and say, "Don't you ever do this again." I wish they would have taught me that actions have consequences back then. They didn't. But the second time I got arrested, I figured I better play a game. Went back to school, kept everything on the low key, moved out when I was 14, by the way, because my parents got transferred and I didn't want to go. And they said, okay, we don't care. Somehow school was never academically hard for me. I got pretty good grades all the way through school. Continued to do my ripping off of a liquor store now and then. Graduated from high school in 1965, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Had a couple of scholarships, said to myself, I don't want to go to no more school. But at the same time, I'd see a thing on TV called Vietnam, and I said, I don't want to get dead neither. So I went down and talked to my recruiter, filled out all the paperwork. He said, Mr. Hager, you are in the top 10%. And if you enlist in the Army Security Agency for 4 fun full years, not only are you not going to Vietnam, you probably want to go overseas. I fell for it, went to Fort Hood, California to learn how to kill people, went to Fort Benning to learn how to make sure they stayed dead, went to Fort Devens to learn the ultimate oxymoron, military intelligence, and then got on a jet and went to the Republic of South Korea for 25 months. I should point this out. When I was in high school, I couldn't even pronounce marijuana. It was something that was downtown LA, but hadn't quite come over the hill into middle-class America yet. So my drug of choice from the time that I was about 12 on was Coors, Jack Daniels, and Johnny Walker Red. Went to Korea, and while in Korea, introduced myself to wacky tobacco and marijuana, not because I was in Korea, not because I was in the Army, but because I made a choice. Nobody forced me to do it. Nobody held a gun to my head to do it. I enjoyed it. My dream at that time, by the way, was to stay in Korea and get out and live in Korea the rest of my life, hook up with a Korean chick, open a bar or something.
Because there's quite a few people that have done that, right? I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah. But after my second extension, the military would not let me extend again. So when I filled out the dream sheet, I put in for Thule, Greenland, Sinop, Turkey, and some other place, because I still didn't want to go to Nam, and I only had a little over a year left. The military, in its never-ending wisdom, sent me to Germany. I reported to Germany, which is typically a 3-year tour, reported to my commander, and please don't hear anything I'm not saying. This is like 1968. He happened to be a black guy that came up as an NCO, went to OCS. He's an officer. I report to him, and he says, Sergeant Hager, you're on your first enlistment. Yes, sir, I am. He looked me right in the eye, and he said, you know what? You're an E5, is that correct? I said, yes, sir. I'm glad you know how to read a 201 file. I said that under my breath. He said, Sergeant Hager, you do not deserve your stripe, and I'm going to do everything I can to take them away from you. Right away, I knew this wasn't going to be my favorite guy of all time. And I do not know, again, this is in 68. I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that I was white and he was black. I have no idea what caused it, but it was just kind of, oh, yo, okay. Um, so there were only two ways out of Germany, either re-enlist or go to Nam. And I wouldn't re-enlist for 2 days for a 3-day pass. So I 1049 volunteered to go to Nam, not because I wanted to be a hero, not because I wanted to do a John Wayne thing, but just it was the only way out. So they approved it. And I should say, while I was in Germany, the Russians had the good grace to invade Czechoslovakia. So that put me out in the field. I was away from that Turkey. And then I got the volunteer approved, went to Vietnam, spent several months in Vietnam, got out of Vietnam, was honorably discharged, all that stuff. In Korea, I introduced myself to grass. In Germany, I dropped some LSD, did some other stupid stuff. In Vietnam, I skin popped heroin, never mainlined. And again, all those are my choices. Nobody made me do it. Got out of the service, came back to the States, was very much in hate with America at that point in my life. I don't hate it now, but at that point, I hated it. We've all heard and experienced the way that non-vets were, quote unquote, welcomed home. So I found a job in Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands, went over there for a while, bopped around, got bored there, came back to Hawaii, bopped around, met a young lady who happened to be a stewardess. She introduced me to some guys she worked for on the side. They interviewed me, they hired me. We moved back to the left coast. And for the next few years, I was involved in multi-level marketing that happened to be illegal. I know there are some that think all multi-level marketing is illegal, but we were dealing drugs, dealing guns, got away with it for quite a while, got popped in December of 1973, and then a whole lot of other things started to happen. And maybe that was quick and too quick, but if you have questions about that, fire away.
You always had a little itch for the wildlife.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean, man? You just had that in you from childhood. It just seemed like it was always in your DNA almost, man.
I'm not sure it's a spiritual gift, but I was born with it. And again, I think probably everybody is to a certain extent, but some of us pull the pin, some of us don't. And I'm not recommending anything, by the way.
No, and this is probably not the right way of putting it, but it's like being a survivalist, and you're kind of the wolf amongst sheep. You're kind of preying on the ones that are just kind of going in the same flow, and that happens sometimes in the world where some people, and a lot of that is it shows your intelligence, and I mean, some people don't realize that part about it, right? Because they only see the bad, but there is a little bit of some intelligence to criminal activity, and especially getting away with it time and time again, especially when you're doing it to others or from others, right?
I think that's true because, as I mentioned, I did really good in school grade-wise, even though I didn't go that often, and a lot of the times I was hungover. And I think one of the reasons I got involved in some of the stuff, school was so stinking boring to me.
Right.
The social stuff was cool, but the quote-unquote education stuff bored me to death. So I think there's validity to what you said about, I'm not patting myself on the head and saying I'm boy genius, but and plus it was fun. It drives my Christian friends crazy when I said it was fun. I've heard people.
Yeah, that's why I'm not trying to like toot the horn of criminal activity in no sense or form, but I do feel that in some sense, when you look at it and you're constantly kind of getting away with it from, and you're kind of doing it from others, you're kind of stealing from the blind almost, you know what I mean? Because there's people that are sleeping all day, every day, all through life, who are not, don't have no cognizance of their surroundings. And then there's people that are very vigilant and see people, you know what I mean? And there's people that look at it's kind of a different way of looking at it, but
so
different is a good description of me.
I have a question for you, Jack.
Yes, ma'am.
So I am 9 years sober myself. So I got from as early as I can remember, I did not feel right inside. and I didn't know how to access everything that I thought other people had that made them feel better. And so because I couldn't access whatever it was that they had, I was always seeking for that outside comfort and trying to control or manipulate. I became a people pleaser really early on. I became a codependent, and then food addiction, and then alcohol and drugs, and then promiscuity, and back to food when I got sober, and codependency. Anyways, I was always seeking for this validation outside of me, because inside I just never felt good, and I felt like I had to control my life, which turned into me manipulating people, in a lot of ways, using people to get my needs met. And so I guess my question is, as somebody else who, struggled with some of these addictions and kind of like manipulating people and whatnot, did you also have that just feeling inside, like something just doesn't feel right and I don't know how to make it feel better, and so I need to control my outside?
I don't think so, at least not consciously. Basically, I just felt people were pretty stupid, and I ought to just, it was do unto others before they do unto you. I just didn't care. And it was pre-Vietnam. I think Vietnam definitely added to it, but I just didn't care about anything. And
okay,
whatever was there was under the surface. And I really didn't think I was hot stuff. I just thought people were pretty dumb. And that was accentuated and elevated the 2 times I did get popped, and they didn't do anything. It just gave me more disrespect for the system, more disrespect, and more respect for me that I can fool these dummies.
So you had a different version of feeling disconnected. I felt like I was less than people, and I had to fight to manipulate to get my needs met. It almost sounds like you felt like you were better than people, because I don't feel either way is a form of disconnect. I'm going to use these people before they use me. I was like, I need to manipulate so that they don't use me. And so it kind of sounds like just a different form of disconnect.
Jack lives his life playing chess while others are playing checkers. So, you know what I mean? He's just a couple steps ahead of others.
And plus, I cheated at chess too.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So you were doing all of this stuff in the military, and when you were in the military, did you end up getting any Article 15s or anything like that, or they just didn't care?
No, the agency, Army Security Agency, which doesn't exist anymore, it was absorbed by something else. It was one of those things where the patch was a lightning bolt with an eagle claw holding onto it. Nobody knew what the ASA did. We didn't know what we did, so why should everybody else? And every now and then I'd tell somebody, say, you're in the ASA, what's that? And I'd say, it's airborne shock assault. And they fall for it, we had to have top secret crypto clearances, and you both being ex-military would probably find this humorous. I had to have an interim top secret to go through the school. When I got to Korea, my security clearance hadn't been granted yet. And for several weeks, I couldn't do anything. They had me drive a colonel around for a while until they replaced me with a Korean, which felt kind of bad. But then finally, they called me up into the intel office. I walked in there and they read me my rights. I said, good grief, what's going on here? And they said, why didn't you tell us about the 2 arrests you had as a juvenile? Oh. And I was very honest with them. I said, because my recruiter said, don't put it down. And they eventually approved my clearance. I got the top secret crypto code word clearance, which I still find humorous to this day. But and in Korea, again, we were a 10-man detachment. I think the oldest guy there was probably 24. We were basically replaced a battalion that had been pulled out of Korea and sent to Vietnam. For some reason, the agency was not supposed to be in Vietnam. So the military, again, they had the 507th ASA group in Germany, the 508th ASA group in Korea, and the 509th Radio Research Group in Vietnam. I think probably people could figure out what the 509th was. But in Korea, we had a mission. As I mentioned, there were just 10 of us there. And we were just barely smart enough to realize if we did our job, nobody would mess with us. And nobody did. So I did my job. We did a good job. I partied hardy, did all the other stuff. And as I mentioned, my dream was just I don't want to go back to the States. I'm just going to stay here. but the military wouldn't let me do that. I was in Korea, by the way, which is important to the story, when the North Koreans swiped the Pueblo, which most people don't even know about today. The Pueblo was an intelligence gathering ship. The North Koreans seized it. They pulled us in for a briefing. It was the most scared I've ever been in my life, because I was young and dumb then. I didn't think the United States would sell these guys out. I knew, even though it violated all kinds of things in the armistice, because of my clearance, I knew that virtually everything we had in South Korea was nuclear. And I really thought we were going to go to nuclear war. But instead, we sold the guys out and nothing ever happened. Then I get to Germany. And as I mentioned, the Russians invaded Czechoslovakia. We knew about that 2 weeks ahead of time. They moved us out of the border and had us gain intel as the Russians rolled across. And then I got to Vietnam after seeing what had happened in Korea, seeing what had happened in Germany, arriving in Vietnam with an IQ 2 points higher than plant life. It didn't take a day or two for me to realize we were not going to win this thing. There was no way they were going to let us win, not the enemy, but the Pentagon, et cetera, and so forth. And that may offend some people. I don't give a rip. The American fighting man and woman did not lose Vietnam. The American people gave it away.
So I have a question for you. It sounds like you have been a very intelligent person, and sometimes with intellect, some people have the emotional intellect and some people do not. So my question I have for you, because I know nowadays you have this ministry that you do, and you have a you're really connected with your higher power, and which my understanding, is it helps you heal internally. Okay. And my question is, when you were in Vietnam dealing with everything that is going on there, we've heard horror stories, we can only imagine what it was like. We can only compare it to what we went through, but we can't even compare it because it's just way different. Right. So my question is, as somebody who is in Vietnam, you're dealing with all this intelligence stuff. You're seeing things from a different point of view than a lot of other people. How was your emotional reactions to things? I know you've already said that you've had your drugs and your alcohol and stuff to help you cope, but how were you emotionally handling things over there? Did you have that? And I hate to say it this way because it sounds horrible. Did you have that adequate emotional intelligence to not internalize that stuff? Or were you still internalizing that stuff, and then the addictions made things easier for you? I don't know if I don't know if I worded that correctly,
Yeah.
but if that makes sense.
I think suppressing would be the word for me. That, I wasn't in a frontline outfit, but I was attached to the 11th Armored Cav, and I did experience some combat, et cetera. And the maddening thing to me, again, was the fact that they wouldn't let us win. The incident that comes to mind is, oh, by the way, my regimental commander was Colonel George S. Patton IV, son of. We were chasing the 274th VC Regiment. We came up to the Cambodian border, and it was like a John Wayne movie, Texas, the Texas Rangers chasing the Comanches or whatever. They cross into Mexico, and John Wayne says, whoa, I wish we could go get them. Colonel Patton came on the horn and said, all track commanders, disregard your blankety blank maps. We're going after them blankety blanks. We crossed over into Cambodia and wiped them out. But the higher ups got wind of it, and they knew they couldn't court-martial Patton because of whose son he was. So they promoted him to one-star general and sent him back to the States. If you've seen
sounds
Apocalypse
military-ish, you screw up, you get
Apocalypse
promoted.
Now, Robert Duvall was Colonel Patton. Whoever wrote that movie knew who Colonel Patton was. Robert Duvall
movie?
was him. Apocalypse Now.
I don't think I've seen it.
Don't bother. It's pretty wacky, but the only time I saw Patton was one time we were back in base camp. I was inside the track smoking a joint, and all of a sudden the door opened and there was Patton. And I just threw the weed down and I crushed it with my cigarettes. And he said, Sergeant Hager, is that marijuana I smell? Yes, sir, it is. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, Hager, if I ever catch you smoking again, I'm going to kill you. And there was no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. But I think the whole escapade of Korea, Germany, and Vietnam all involving different kinds of combat activity, if you will. I just suppressed it all. I got to survive this thing. And even then, probably midway through my tour, I just didn't care. I didn't care if I lived, didn't care if I died. I wasn't anxious to die, but the whole thing was a boring trip. It was just apathy, maybe, I guess. Okay, I'm not going to do anything to risk, especially the lives of the guy to my left or right, because that's all combat is. I'm not going to do that, but I'm just going to get through this thing. And if I get through it, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then you get back to the States, and how many babies did you kill in Vietnam and all that other crap. That was probably pivotal in the sense that I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm not going to stay in this stinking country and listen to this crap. So I saw an ad in the paper that said, "Are you recently discharged with a top secret clearance? See us." And I saw them, and they said, "How would you like to go to Kwajalein?" I said, "What's a Kwajalein?" And it's a place in the Marshall Islands that was downrange of the Pacific Mission Range. And they said, "We want to send you over there as a radar intercept operator." I said, "I can't even spell radar. What are you talking about?" It was a government cost plus thing. So I went to Kwaj, hung around there for a while. But I don't think I was escaping things. I was just looking for something new.
That's one thing that I was just going to ask, like with the apathy that you said that you were feeling, was it a conscious apathy, or it was just, this is the way that it is?
I think that's a better way of saying it. It was kind of subdued, under the radar, under my radar. I just, is this all there is? I know there ain't no heaven, but I pray there ain't no hell. You guys are too young to remember that song probably, but don't want to live, don't want to die. I just didn't care. But the tragic thing about that is I was, in my early 20s. There's a whole lot of junior high kids running around right now that are already there. They just don't care. They don't care if they live or die. And that's what I'm devoting my life to try and impact a life here and a life there, and say, hey, you are important. You are irreplaceable. There's a life to live, not just exist.
So let's move on a little bit outside of the military. So you have all of the experiences that you've had. You're struggling with the addictions. What was that?
To be honest with you, I wasn't struggling. I was loving it.
Okay, yeah, you were consumed with these addictions, and so I guess my question is, how did that affect you when you came back and transitioned back into the civilian life?
So
ahead,
before
Bryan.
we do the transition into civilian life, we'll go ahead and do our veteran showcase real quick. Kind of a good transition always. But we're going to do our normal veteran showcase here. This one is a Marine Corps veteran who was a sniper in Afghanistan. And he's going to be quite an amazing, he's an artist now. Let's go ahead and bring it up, and we'll go ahead and let you guys listen to the song, and you could also go through the story as well. So we're going to go ahead and disappear and take a quick one. So everybody enjoy this one.
Weakness. I choose love, but you will never beat this. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Just because I speak peace, you'll never defeat this. No. I've been through 2 foreign wars, seen innocent bloodshed on the pavement, still don't know what for. It seems like greed can corrupt a whole country. We got to give access to the people who have less. Strong arms, weak souls, shallow men always fighting for control. Governments pretend to represent, it's farther from the truth with every lie that they present. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I choose love, but you will never beat this. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Just because I speak peace, you'll never defeat this. Oh, letting go no longer keep it score. Learning how to serve love from the deepest of my core. Warriors uniting around the world. The demons flee when I and we walk along in harmony. Strong hearts, bold souls. Humble teachers lead louder than the ghosts. Noble men connect to represent. Fall divided, stand united, evolve when we respect. Maybe it's U.S. or us, or maybe it's us versus them, or maybe it's me versus myself, a battle like fight from within. Screaming up, God bless myself, and God bless America. God bless my soul, and God bless America. Hi, this right here is my declaration. Reparations and separations, it took some time for that preparation. It ain't here, oh, God bless my soul. And I pledge allegiance to my own allegiance, no man down. Only stand down, but stand salute, cause I'm a man now. Let's go. Don't mistake my kindness. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I choose love, but you will never beat this. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Just because I speak peace, you'll never defeat this. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I choose love, but you will never beat this. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Just because I speak peace, you'll never defeat this. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I choose love, but you will never beat this. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Just because I speak peace, you'll never defeat this. No.
That was an awesome song. We gotta see if we can get some of these showcases onto our show at some point.
Yeah, I would love to get Brandon Mills on, man. I mean, he just seems like he has an amazing story, and he sounds like he's really, using his music once again as a platform of how he's healing and stuff like that. And I just love it. Yeah, I think this veteran showcase is going to give a lot of people that opportunity to hear songs they never heard by, some of these guys get so lost in, unfortunately, the algorithm and stuff because they don't got the money and the funds to get their music out there to the masses. So I thought this is a good opportunity to still kind of push it out there a little bit, do what our show can do. But, maybe you hear a song and you're like, gosh, dang, that sounds good. Remember, once again, guys, go look up Brandon Mills. It's free 99 on most of the platforms to go follow. Just go give them a little follow and you can go listen to some amazing songs.
And if you have any other people that you want showcased, please send them to us. Sliderbabe.com, Marie@sliderbabe.com. Let's get more people out there. We just want people to be able to get their stories out there.
Absolutely. All right, Jack, now we're going to go ahead and turn the show back over to you, and let's go ahead and hear how the transition worked more for you and how, what kind of life you started once you got yourself out.
Transition from the military?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I almost want to say tough, but it wasn't tough. It was just different. When I say I was in hate with America, that was not it wasn't an exaggeration. Every now and then I wonder what would have happened had I been black or red or brown. If I had just one more negative in me, would I have gone up in a tower and start shooting people? I don't think so. But I think it's just, if you haven't been there, done that, and you have no clue what it's like to come out of a combat zone and to come out and just be ostracized, ridiculed, etc., and so forth. I'm so grateful that in Iraq and Afghanistan, even the people that were against the war were not against the warriors. And I never wore any nom stuff, never broadcast too much about my nom vet.
And I
Jack,
I feel like unfortunately the temperament is starting to change a little bit, and that's where I hope we don't get back to a level of hating our men and women for what they're doing, you know, because someone disagrees with, the politics of it all or whatever. They don't, they start to lose hope in the humanity side of it. Our people that a lot of these men and women that join come from a hopeless place and they're looking for hope, you know what I mean? Through the military. And a lot of them are just in there and we are given missions and we do our mission. We don't ask questions.
So I was just going to say, Jack, the reason why most of us who went to Iraq and Afghanistan, didn't have the same issues that you guys did, it's because of you guys. That is the thing, is like all of these programs that have been set up for us, all of the awareness, all of the support is because of you Vietnam vets. We have seen so much that you guys were treated so badly that you didn't want it to continue on. And so your generation is what made way for us. And sadly, the way that the world goes, right, is like tough situations create great people. Great people create easy situations. Easy situations create lazy people who create difficult situations. And so
Jack,
that's kind of what is going on right now. We're in that spot where your generation had it so flippin' tough. You made it easier for our generation. And sadly, some of our generation is making shit worse for the next generation. Especially, we've talked about this before. We have fellow veterans that are treating others badly. I had somebody who was completely tearing me down after I shared my story, and that's happened a couple times, of a few different people in our veteran community treating us badly. And so I will say, for me, when I got back from deployment, I felt loved and I felt connected, even though I was in my addictions and I didn't really feel it, but I saw that it was there. I had support. And in my sobriety, I have learned it's because of your generation. So,
and Jack,
we
you know
thank
what? If
you
no
guys
one
have
ever
done.
told you, welcome home, man.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Well,
Marie pretty much said a lot of it, but your generation was very, we a lot of us, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of us younger generations, we do look very have a lot of respect for that Vietnam veteran population, because that's mostly who we still see the face of, right? And a lot of, and
it's
we've
our
heard the
parents.
stories, and right, and it's and a lot of us were impacted and by that and the stories of it. And then when we all are going through it, right, because you don't know what someone goes through till you kind of put the boots on and walk a little bit in their shoes, right? And then once we all start kind of like going through it, you're like, it really, for me, when I deployed, oh my God, I just, the realization that I ended up having, and it came later in life, but I started to really think back and say, I could only imagine what those generations prior to us went through. You guys, like technology wise too, right? Like we're so much more technology advanced than you guys were. There's just so many things that we can look back and say, ooh, wow. I mean, because the things that you guys did and accomplished in a jungle foreign to us, and like I said, the capabilities we had were nowhere near what we have today. And what you guys manage is the ultimate respect. I mean, I hope you know that this generation, we have the ultimate respect for you guys.
Even if the next generation is losing their shit a little bit, but we have it. We got you. We got your back, man.
I appreciate it. I never wore NOM stuff until Iraq, Afghanistan. I figured, okay, maybe it'll open a door to a conversation with somebody. And heard a lot of welcome homes after that. Got a few meals after that.
Yeah, good.
But more importantly, started connecting with other vets, non-vets in particular, who just needed somebody to listen. And as we all know, well, as some of us know, everybody else ignores. Usually, the best thing you can do for somebody is just look them in the eye and listen.
And I'm glad you wear your hat, Jack, because people like you, I approach people like you. when I see a hat that says Vietnam veteran, that makes me want to go talk to that person and shake their hands and tell them thank you. And I've done that a couple of times. And when I did that, I actually got a Vietnam coin. And I thought that was the most coolest thing ever. I got to show you guys. I don't think I have it out here on my display, but a Vietnam coin, and I cherish that one because I've always seeked out, and I've even, when I've seen a veteran maybe with his wife or just sitting there by himself, I've told the waitress I got that meal, and don't even let them know where it came from or nothing. I just tell them thank you so much and welcome home. Boom, you know what I mean? And because I make another person do it, right? Now a waitress has to go and tell that person thank you and recognize them. But I want that younger generation to understand the respect level that it comes with too.
I appreciate it.
Right.
You know, I think you guys and us guys, so to speak, I think the most unifying factor, I've never been diagnosed. I don't think I ever had PTSD. As close as I came to it was when we were pulling out of Afghanistan, that idiocy of loading those planes. It just took me back to 73, the exact same stupid thing, screwing a whole nation, screwing a whole lot of people, and the combatants in themselves. And I was enraged. I was just pretty close to.
You've seen a lot in your time, Jack, and you've seen a lot of the political part of it, and you've been a part of it. You've seen it firsthand and stuff like that. I can only imagine how that really impacted a lot of probably veterans. I mean, just all of us veterans in general, when we heard that whole thing, and it was a slap in the face for a lot of the veterans that spent their blood, sweat, and tears over there.
Yep.
And to hear how we did what we did, and then we lose bodies on top of it all.
Are you talking about when we left Iraq?
Afghanistan.
Oh.
And then we lost 13 Marines.
13 Marines, yeah. That. I mean, obviously the graphics were different, but it was the same thing as the roof of the embassy in Saigon, the helicopters, and the helicopters getting pushed off the aircraft carriers. And, probably most importantly, well, at least as importantly, people that we told we'd take care of them, we said, screw you, we're gone. And, I don't think America is God's country. I don't think it ever has been. But from going to a point that I hated it, I still am glad I'm American. I try to be patriotic without being simplistic. But,
you've learned a lot.
I'm not sure I can sing I'm proud to be an American with Lee Greenwood on some occasions. Certainly not that day.
And I don't blame you. I mean, you've seen a lot, and you've experienced a lot firsthand. So I don't blame anybody for feeling a certain way about our country and in general. I've learned a lot too, man. I mean, after you serve, and then you really start to kind of look more from a bird's eye view, because when you're kind of stuck in it and you're kind of going through things, you're very blind because you're captivated into what you're doing, right? And so you're just hyper fixed on that. So when you allow yourself to kind of remove yourself and disassociate yourself from that situation, you almost start to have a different eye for it, right? And sometimes when you're for that team, you're willing to kind of be passive and not look at the bad things that are going on or acknowledge the bad shit, right? Because you're like, for that team, you're like, yeah, but we're doing this, you know what I mean? It's always that whole thing. But now I imagine a lot of you guys have experienced what you're experiencing and feel some kind of way. And I love hearing it, though. I love to hear this. I love hearing your voice, and I love to hear. I hope that we can get more voices, more Vietnam veterans out there, because we do know that time here on Earth is short, man. And we don't know tomorrow's never guaranteed, right? So the more that we can get these stories out, man, the more that people can learn, because these are digitally in libraries for years to come. People will learn about what our country went through, the people that actually went there and did something and fought for our country or experienced things. So I really appreciate you, telling us this stuff.
I won't say it's a pleasure, but it's I think transparency and honesty is a good thing. In my preaching ministry, my school stuff, everything else, I think it's meant as a criticism, but I take it as a pat on the back. Jack, you're too transparent. I say, what? What are you talking about? I mean, you don't have to go into all the details. You don't have to tell the blood and guts stories, but just be real. For goodness sakes, be real. And of course, a lot of that comes from my faith, but even I think without my faith,
and I tell you
shine me on. Don't try to play a game. Just be real.
I've had people tell me the same thing. Like, Marie, you need to not tell everybody everything. And I'm like, I kind of follow with what I feel is right, and I'm not going to filter myself, You know
what? I'll be honest with you. When you live your life with full transparency and you don't really hide nothing, it is a less stressful life to live. I promise you that. A lot of people have stress in their life because they're lying all the time. They have to juggle lies. They got to juggle, their stories that they're not true. That shit's stressful to people. If you can't,
concealment.
Yeah, if you cannot be yourself every day, that is a level of stress that you're adding to yourself. So I love that the transparency. I know some people don't understand it, right? Because they don't feel comfortable being transparent. But it would be foolish to think that everybody out there has just been, perfect saints and never lived any kind of life, right?
And sometimes they look down, I don't know about you, Marie, and nobody's ever had the guts to say it to me, but I think sometimes, you're just a victim. No, not me.
I lived as the victim for a very long time. And so that's the thing. We've had this conversation before. For a long time, I defined myself by my trauma. And now I define myself from healing from trauma. And I hope one day that trauma has nothing to do with who I am. But for a long time,
victim to advocacy.
For a long time, I was that victim. And so now I actually had a conversation with one of my brothers a while back because I talk about my trauma, in regards to healing. And he had that mindset. If you're talking about it, then you must be living in victim mentality. And I had to explain to him because he's like, can't you go like a week without talking about your stuff? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, you even go a day? And I said, no. I said, I am not talking about it just to live in this victim mentality. As I share what I've been through, it helps other people know they're not alone.
Yep.
And that's not a victim. But yes, some people, if you talk about it, they view it as being a victim. And you have to figure out that clear definition of, am I living in victim mentality or am I healing from my trauma?
And that puts us in the minority because one of the worst things about the prison system, skipping ahead quite a bit, I got sentenced to a dime, checked into Oregon State Penitentiary, and not because I was me, but because I was 36403. You go through reception, they give you the basic intelligence test, the ink blot test, the square peg round hole test, interview with a shrink, interview with a chaplain. At the end of it, they took me in front of the board. They said, Mr. Hager, the reason why you're a dealer and a thief is because of the bad attitude you have toward the United States because of your tour of duty in Vietnam. What have they just told me? It's not my fault. Vietnam did it to me. And these are well-meaning people, I'm sure, for the most part, but they operate from the standpoint, and this could offend some people, but they operate from the standpoint that man is good. Therefore, if man goes bad, they're going to find a reason.
External circumstances.
I operate from the standpoint since January 30th, 1974, that man is bad. We're all sinners, born in sin, et cetera, and so forth. We're doing what comes naturally to us. And I got to man up and take responsibility for my life. Those great theologians, the Eagles, they had a hit record that was on the flip side of, I think, Hotel California. Most people aren't aware of it, but if you aren't, look it up. It's called Get Over It by the Eagles. Your mama's too skinny and your daddy's too fat. Get over it. Just the basic thing of just quit blaming everybody else, man up or woman up, take responsibility for your life. Sure, a lot of this junk contributes. My parents' alcoholism probably contributed. Vietnam contributed, but I had to make the choice. And until and unless you realize that, you can't change it.
Well, and this is that concept, and we've talked about it a lot, that recovery mindset. You know, I am not in control of the external circumstances of my life. I can't control people, I can't control places, I can't control things, I can't control paths or the future. What I can control, what is my choice to make, regardless of whatever is happening outside of me, is I get to choose what I do, my actions and my reactions. And that is my choice. And so I like that that's the way that you're explaining it. Like I am not a victim of my circumstances, because I still get to choose how I respond to those circumstances. And as a child, yes, there's a lot of stuff that's outside of our control. And we can't really control how we responded back then, because we didn't have the tools and we didn't have the understanding. But as we get older and we understand the tools and we understand, you know, what's going on, then it becomes our choice on how we respond. And even no matter what we've been through in childhood, because, you know, for me, you know, I dealt with a lot of trauma. I was born to addict, alcoholic parents. I was in foster care. I dealt with sexual abuse and neglect and stuff like that. And for so many years, it's like, well, if you went through what I went through, you would respond like this. And I was living in that victim mentality. But the reality is, even though I could not control what happened to me, I chose to hold on to the resentments. I chose to hold on to the anger and the frustration and to go into my addictions instead. So I love that you're kind of in that same mindset, because yeah, our circumstances do not dictate us. It doesn't matter if we are in a world that's on fire. We get to choose how we respond to that. Are we going to drag somebody and throw them under the fire? Or are we going to say, well, this is where I'm at. I'm going to find peace with where I'm at.
Makes sense to me.
What were you going to say, Bryan? Sorry.
Oh, I wasn't going to say anything. I lost, I lost that train of thought.
Okay.
That one was...
You know, it is important for me to say this, that when I got busted, I got arrested in San Angelo, Texas on fugitive warrants. Texas had no charges on me. Most of the charges came from Oregon, a couple from California, a couple Fed charges. They had our little thing under observation, under surveillance. They issued a pickup order. So all of a sudden, I'm busted, you know, and I didn't care. When those lights went on and they cuffed me, this was something new. I'd never been in prison before, been in jail a few times. I had more money than I could count, all those stories we've all heard. And I was bored. Still, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, look up in the darkness, think, is this it? Is this all there is? So I got popped, thrown into jail. A few weeks later, they found some drugs in the cell, take everything out except the religious junk. And that's exactly the way I looked at it. And I'd never been in church except for weddings and funerals. I thought Jesus was just a swear word, knew nothing about nothing. But after a couple of days of having nothing to do, went over to the pile of books, and I suppose there are all kinds of Bibles, all kinds of other things there. Didn't want to read the Bible. I was a man, did the crime, I could do the time. But at the bottom of the pile was a little book with a American flag on it and the word prison in the title. And I said to myself, why don't you just read this book, disregard the science fiction religious junk, see what this turkey has to say about prison, because you're going to prison. Might as well find out, maybe get some intel that'll help it to go better. So I read the book, World War II guy, alcoholic, in jail. A chaplain comes in, leads him to the Lord. He gets out, starts a big church in California. Got to the end of the book, and I said, cool. In the book, he kept quoting Bible verses. So I said to myself, you know what? He must think the Bible's more important than his story. So, and I'm not looking for God. I'm not looking for a way out. I'm still bored. So I picked up a Bible and began to read. Somehow made it all the way to Revelation, said, that's interesting, threw it across, but I couldn't get Jesus out of my head. And after a few days, I picked the book up again. Humanly speaking, I think the first thing that attracted me to the Lord Jesus was, as I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I realized he never had anything bad to say to the hookers. He never had anything bad to say to the tax collectors. The only people he blasted was the religious people. I said, that's kind of neat, you know. And but anyway, I read some more, and in a very simple way, and I remember the date because I was 26 years old, but it was January 30th, 1974. I didn't pray the prayer, whatever that is. I didn't jump through the hoops. I just believed, trusted, relied on that Jesus Christ was God, that he lived a sinless life, that he died to pay the penalty for my sin, that he was declared with power to be the Son of God by his resurrection from the dead. And I trusted Christ, believed Christ, got saved, born again. My favorite word, converted. And my life has been way different ever since then. Not easy, not safe, not even good sometimes. But if any man be in Christ, he's a new creation. The old things have passed away. All things became new. And it was fresh start. The 4 years I did in prison, I redeemed the time instead of did time. And when I got out, my first job was a minister of sanitation, otherwise known as a janitor, at a church in Southern California. Through a string of coincidences, found out about a Bible school in Kansas City, got my parole switched from LA to Kansas City. I went to Bible school and been doing full-time ministry since 1978. Yes, I am older than dirt.
Wow.
But
Amazing.
that's the most important part of my life, not Vietnam, not a lot of other stuff, but that doesn't mean I don't talk to other people who disagree with that, whether they're another faith or no faith, whatever. They're people that have God's stamp on them, and my desire is to point everybody to Jesus Christ and love them regardless. And God
Now,
has opened the door.
has it changed your life immensely in the way you have outlook your experience in Vietnam and stuff like that? Or has that part not really changed? Or do you have a different outlook on it now that you have found Christ? Or, I mean, has anything changed?
At the risk of being picky, I didn't find him. He wasn't lost. He found me. But anyway, I think the lens I'm looking through is the lens of faith. And I was as lost as an Easter egg. I didn't know nothing about nothing. But I had the opportunity to read the Bible, had the opportunity to go to Bible school. And one of my favorite verses is 2 Peter 3:18. But grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I figure maybe I'm in kindergarten now, and I still want to grow. And I think the difference is looking through the lens of realizing that, yes, everybody I see, number one, is created in the image of God. Number two, everybody I see is either a saved sinner or a lost sinner. And my job, not because I got a piece of paper on the wall that says I'll be a reverend, but because I'm a follower of Christ, my job is to brag on Jesus and try and introduce other people to the Savior that has revolutionized my life and has guaranteed my future.
So I have a question. I love that you have this like huge transition, and I know that there is a whole lot in between. Okay. With all of this, when did you get married and start having kids? Was it in your addictions in jail, or was it after you found Christ, or after Christ?
Thank you.
After you converted to Christ?
Yeah.
AC.
Way after.
After Christ.
Got married in 82, and she deserves a medal. And before that, it was just a mess. But the change is not past tense. It's present tense and future tense.
Oh yeah.
I feel not what I will be.
You have to choose every day.
Yeah, I'm not what I will be. I'm not what I should be. But I guarantee I'm not what I used to be. And that's all credit to Christ. And yes, you have to cooperate with him. It's not just come to Jesus and all your problems are over. There's a certain, and if I offend anybody, too bad. There's a certain brand of so-called Christianity that says Jesus died to make us healthy and wealthy. That's crap. Jesus said, in this world you will have persecution. The Bible tells us to exult in our tribulation. Health and wealth stuff is garbage. It's not the gospel. It's a different gospel. And again, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry, but that's truth. And
so,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, if you were sorry, I thought you were finished.
I am.
Oh, okay. Sorry. If you had the opportunity, right, and you were able to look at your 18-year-old self in the mirror today, what would you tell that 18-year-old self?
Go to church, open a Bible, read. Beyond that, people have asked, and I've often thought, if I hadn't converted while I was locked up, would I have gone back to it when I hit the street? I don't think so. I would have continued to smoke dope and drink probably and stuff, but I didn't like doing time. I cannot understand anybody going to prison once. It baffles me about the guys that are doing life on the installment plan. Do 2 years here, get out for a little while, go back again. And when I'm in prison talking to them, I say, hey, if you're here for the first time, let's talk. If you're here for the second time, you like it here. We got nothing to talk about. And they glare at me and they, et cetera. But it's true. Any fool can make it on the street if they want to. Well, my parole officer was a jerk. You don't understand. I'm black. You don't understand. Shut up, man. Grow up. You can make it if you want to. But you have to do that incredibly hard thing for so many of us. Help. Ask for help. Even the Lone Ranger had a buddy. Of course, that dates me. I say that to teenagers and they go, who? But anyway, you can't do this thing on your own. Whether a non-Christian or a Christian, we really do need each other. Cue the music. We really need people. And for a guy or girl trying to tough it out, again, whether as a Christian or not a Christian, you got to humble yourself and say, I need help. I cannot do this on my own.
So I wanted to ask you, for me, all right, I'm a little psycho. I'm a little bit psycho, and there is multiple layers.
You know what? I say that all women are psycho. It's at what level are you willing to deal with? So
I'm
don't
smarter
worry.
than you. I'm smarter than you. I didn't say that.
Okay. So it's true. Okay. So I'm a little bit psycho, and I'm with that. There's multiple layers when you're talking about receiving help. For me, I have to have God, Christ, my religion, my spirituality that overwhelms everything, right? That is my huge everything. And I also go to a crap ton of therapy. I've been to multiple psych units. I've been to multiple different programs, learning different tools to help me with the mental. Okay. So I've got the spiritual that overdoes everything. And with that, God's like, hey, you need a little bit of extra help. Right. Some people, religion or spirituality, not even just religion, right? Spirituality, religion, that is the one thing that is enough for them. Okay.
To keep them grounded.
So spirituality in general. Okay. That is everything. For me, my spirituality has to manifest in mind, body, and spirit. And I have to have the extra help. And so like for me, for the mind, right? I've got multiple therapies. I've been through psych units. I've been through learning different types of tools and therapies and stuff like that. So I've got that. With the body, right? I have to deal with the physicality of the addictions. And so with that comes in my recovery groups, right? And challenging, why I went to the addictions and recognizing that the substance that I have this allergy to these substances, right? And then I'm addicted to the high, and it's not just about the substance, it's about multiple other things. And anyways, for me, I have to have multiple layers of support systems. Okay.
I think that's perfectly good and perfectly right.
Well, my question, I guess, for you, so I have my religion, I have my recovery groups, I have my therapy, and then I have just like my veteran support groups, and then just my friend groups, right? I've got multiple layers every week. Everything is different. Yes. And I'm like consistently having to reach out to multiple different people in different places. Then that's for me. I will go crazy if I don't have these support systems. So I guess my question is for you. I know you have the spirituality element, your religion element. Do you have other support systems that you utilize as well?
My wife.
Yeah.
Not formally, but going back to that health and wealth prosperity gospel, even people that aren't into that sometimes will either give the impression or actually say, come to Jesus and it's all fixed. And if you got Jesus, you don't need all this other junk. And number one, I question whether they're really Christians. Number two, I just want to say, shut up, dude. You do need help. It's like a picture popped in my head. This person, a mutual friend was going to AA. A mutual friend who professed to be a Christian was going to AA meetings. And she said to me, don't you think so-and-so is weak because you're going there? I say, no, I think you're weak because you're saying that. I wish AA when it first started, it was a narrow-minded Christian thing. And then it went to the higher power thing. I wish they were more on the other thing, but I'd rather have and she went, don't you think he's addicted to AA? I'd rather have him addicted to AA than meth. I'd rather have him addicted to going to a stupid meeting where he can, I think Philip Yancey, well, he got in a lot of trouble, but Philip Yancey is an author I've appreciated. And he wrote a little book called Church Who Needs It. And he was the first one to verbalize most AA meetings are closer to New Testament church than most churches are. I mean, I wonder how it'd be if Sunday morning, go to church and say, hi, I'm Jack, I'm a sinner.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, okay? If you are saying that this specific thing is what is saving you, okay, that is where things get dangerous, okay? In the aspect, okay, this addiction is making me feel better. This person is making me feel better. This situation is making me feel better. And even in your healing, it's the, I call them big book thumpers. You've got the big book thumpers. This is the thing that saved me. You've got the Bible thumpers. This is the thing that saved me. You've got the Book of Mormon thumpers. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormon. Right. And so people are like, the Book of Mormon is what saves me. Or like people who believe in stones, right? I've got stones, or I've got, this is not a stone. This one's a bone. But anyways, people say that that's the thing that saves me. Okay. The thing that I've realized is everybody needs to recognize that all of this stuff is just tools. And the thing that saves us is that higher power that I choose to call God. It's that universal thing that is out there that is connecting us and is bringing us towards our higher selves and being better and this, that, and the other. And so it doesn't matter where you go or what you're utilizing. You can't say that this thing is what has saved you. This thing is what's making you better. It's our higher power, God, the connection that flows through us. The opposite of addiction, a lot of people think is sobriety. The thing that I've learned is the opposite of addiction is connection, because addiction by nature isolates us. And so that whole idea is connection is the thing that saves us. So when anybody is the Bible thumper, big book thumper, Book of Mormon thumper, or whatever it is, if you think that is the thing that's saving you, that is where things get dangerous. But if you need that for now, then so be it. If that's going to keep you alive, if that's going to keep you sober, if that's going to keep you, moving forward, let that be it for now. But recognize that it's not the thing that's keeping you alive and sober and free. It's your higher power.
I don't think I've ever consciously thought this, but you bring out that connection thing. One of the hazards of growing up as a military brat is you move all the time. So, you move into a place of how long am I going to be here? So you don't develop a whole lot of friendships. At least I didn't.
You have to overcome a lot.
Yeah. So there wasn't that there. I went to, 3 different junior highs, 2 high schools. And how many friends did you have, Jack? Acquaintances, yeah. Friends, no. The military, the same thing. I don't want to get too close to you because you might buy the farm in the next second. Prison, the same thing. You when you check into the joint, the first thing you have to decide is, am I going to do my time, or am I going to do everybody else's time? And so there's a sort of a isolation there. And even as a young Christian, I'm grateful that the chaplain was as lost as an Easter egg, but there was some Bible studies, some other things that I could go to. And I did develop some friendships, even with a couple COs, which is, my best friend in prison was a black guy, and that just didn't happen. And then when I hit the street, friendship and connection, and that, I'm still, you fried my brain a little there when you said that, because I've never consciously thought about it, but maybe that childhood nomadic lifestyle, I don't want to get deep, because ultimately I don't want to get deep because I might get hurt.
Yep.
And then just build up the shell and just be alone.
It's the snake that eats itself. Isolation and addiction. It's a snake that eats itself. Why do we choose the addictions? Because we don't feel connected to people. And what happens when we get lost in our addictions is we don't connect to people. And so it turns into this vicious cycle. And if you notice, the only way Every single person, I was going to say 99%, but every single person that I have seen who have overcome an addiction, it is connection that helped them overcome it. It is somebody else. It is common humanity, it is higher power. It is connection to universe, connection to God, connection to others. Every single person that I have seen that has relapsed back into their addictions, it's because they did not reach out to somebody that day. It's because they didn't go to a meeting. It's because they didn't do something to connect with other people, and they got lost in that isolation and went back to their addiction.
Well, as the Bible says, let him who thinks he stands take care, because you don't mature your way out of addiction. You don't mature your way out of, well, you're a pretty mature guy. No, I'm maturing, but I'm not mature. But I'm working at recognizing that I do need, maybe that's just enough. I do need.
Yeah.
Regardless of what comes after that word, I do need.
I think that, a lot of what we don't realize, right, is our childhood is basically our foundation of our foundation is built based off of our childhood. And a lot of what we, and so if your childhood, what you experienced during your childhood, that's, you either have a very firm foundation, or it's, got a lot of repairing done throughout the years, or some people have crumbles still of foundations that don't have very good foundations to stand on, so I think that a lot of times when we look back and we see things that are, when you reflect as you get older, right, and you kind of reflect back through the life, you kind of start to say, like, oh gosh, damn, like, maybe a lot more stem from my childhood than I would ever imagine, right? And then, something that you kind of touched on too is we don't really reflect upon that part too much, because we don't think about it. We just keep living day to day. But you ever go back and you start your story back, you're kind of looking back, you're like, man, I can see that's where maybe the started of the foundation.
As long as you keep it in balance,
Right. Sure.
It's not my fault because I got abused as a child.
We don't want to live there, right? We don't want to live there, right? But we want to. The thing is we left a lot of unfinished business there, right? And that's just the problem, is that we didn't deal with so much throughout our life, because we all been taught to just keep pressing forward and move forward, which there is a level of that is true, right? Because you do got to keep pressing forward. You can't live in your suck, but you have to be able to process it in at the same time as you're going forward. There's almost, it's got to be that thing where you got to be able to push, but you also got to be able to process it, or otherwise at some point in time your foundation just will break on you, and then you're dealing with crumbles and you're trying to put it all together.
I'm kind of laughing because it's so easy to get off balance. That great song that if I was king of the country, everybody would have to listen to the song at least once a week. The Eagles, Get Over It. It's got a line in there, I'd like to find your inner child and kick its little, that even in quote unquote Christian context, there's unlocking the secrets of your past. Maybe I'll say this. You mentioned that we have 2 adopted kids, and in the first one, the birth mom was 13, and she was in one state and we were in a different state, met her at a Christian camp, et cetera, and so forth. Anyway, so this Christian social worker comes out to do the adoption interview with us. And she interviewed my wife, myself, my 2 boys individually, then interviewed us as a unit. In her interview with me, she said, "Tell me about your childhood." And I said, "I can't." She goes, "What?" I said, "I remember a couple dogs in Germany. I remember horseflies in Texas, but I don't have very many memories the other side of 11 or 12. And she kept digging and digging and digging. I said, "Excuse me, lady, to the best of my knowledge, I was not molested as a child. To the best of my knowledge, there wasn't a traumatic thing. Maybe it did. Maybe in his grace, God has erased that from my memory. But I'm not going to go digging through this to try and, if maybe I had some real addiction to porn or some other thing, maybe it would be helpful to go back and try and unpack some of that stuff. But basically, some of that stuff probably needs to stay packed. And again, there's a balance thing there where she just couldn't believe that I had no. Tell me about your first. I can't tell you about Christmas. I don't remember. Whether it's the fact the drugs or just that what I firmly believe that God just kind of erased that kind of stuff. You come back from Vietnam or I assume Afghanistan, Iraq, and you're debriefed, and they tell you don't talk about this stuff anymore. Oh, okay, yeah, right. I think for a genuine Christian, there's kind of a reformatting the hard drive kind of where some of the junk is just out of the way. And I think part of recovery is saying, okay, this happened, but I don't have to dwell on that anymore. This happened. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the wording that came to me a long time ago was my story never changed, but I became a different storyteller. And so like when I was stuck in my addictions, my story was a horror book. And now it's an educational novel. It's different. The story hasn't changed. I just tell it differently now. I understand it differently. And there's things that I highlight and underline and before it was like these blaring traumas or these huge highlights, in the beginning of the chapter of the book. And then now it's like, oh, here's this. And here's these wonderful experiences that I had. And here's the healing that I went through. And so my story didn't change. But I am now a different storyteller. And it sounds like that's kind of where you're at right now, too.
I think so. Yeah. Just that the school assembly that I wasn't looking for that. There was a Union Star, Missouri. It's not quite the end of the world, but you can see it from there. If you're old enough to remember, it's the home of Arnold the pig from Green Acres. But there was a girl that was going to school there, and she knew me, and she said, will you come to our school and tell your story? And I said, yeah. Went to the school and basically told my story without a whole lot of Christian connotation and just emphasizing personal responsibility. And to the point that at the end of it, and again, I did a whole bunch of these things. And a lot of times the administrators didn't like, because I would always close it saying, as horrible as prison was, it was still the second best thing that ever happened to me, because I was in jail on the way to prison. I was confronted by Christ, became a follower of his. But I'm not there preaching. And at the end of it, I would kind of freak out. Some of the people say, hey, if you want to sleep around, sleep around. If you want to do drugs, do drugs. But, whatever you do, when you do get popped or you do get pregnant, don't come crying to me and saying, you make your choices, then your choices make you. And you've got to think this thing through. And again, that personal responsibility thing. There's a way that seems right to a man, as the Bible says, and I got to figure out what's right as a Christian, as a non-Christian. Is the risk worth it? Knock yourself out. I mean, I'm not advocating that, obviously, but if you want to be a thief, be a thief. If you want to sleep around, but don't come crying to me when the consequences come.
See, and people like to blame the consequences, right? Yep. When everybody wants to blame the consequence, and it's, they have the outcry. And a lot of times you wonder, are you upset because you got cut, or are you upset because of what you did? Right?
It's that Chinese, what's that thing, that the longest journey begins with a small step. And that's both positive and negative. Nobody ever leaves from being, hey, I think I'll be a junkie. We all got that incredible, not just teenagers, we got that incredible disease. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. And then when it does happen, everything blows up. And now what do I do?
Fish out of water.
So, Jack, we're going to be closing up here pretty soon, and I wanted to ask if you would be willing. We're booked out until the end of the season, and so I was thinking that maybe next year, if you're up for it, we would love to have you come back and just give us an example of like one of the speeches that you would give to jail or to the schools or something like that. And if you could write something and gear it towards veterans and overcoming the struggles that we have gone through. If you would be interested, I would love to have you come and share with us some form of
giving you a mission, soldier.
Advice. Yeah. And so if you're okay with
Oh, she paused
to do
out.
that, and then kind of do a little Q&A afterwards.
I would love to do it. Yeah, I have spoken to some veteran groups, et cetera, because it's like public
We'll do it
school.
live.
Reverend
We'll do it
Hager
live so
can't
we
get
can have
into
some
school,
questions
but
come through.
ex-convict Hager can, and just so because of my background, I'm invited to speak at very, social groups and civic groups, et cetera, and so forth. I'd love to do something like that.
Yeah, as Bryan was just saying, we could do a full live conversation, and then that way you could share, and then we can have our audience come and ask you questions and have a discussion.
I would love it.
Awesome.
But as we're running out of time, I do want to say this. As you mentioned, I think you mentioned that I got diagnosed with multiple myeloma, Vietnam, the gift that keeps on giving. I just want to give a shout out to the VA because you hear all the horror stories about the VA, and I'm sure that happens. But I have a clinic here in St. Joseph, Missouri. They discovered a kidney issue that led to the discovery of the cancer, which I think was a God wink anyway. I go to Leavenworth for my kidney, go to Kansas City VA for the cancer stuff. Without exception, they've been stupendous. I've absolute confidence in them.
Great.
They're professional, friendly, explain things. And, I know that could change at a moment's notice, I suppose, but it's like anything else. It's a whole lot easier to take time to scream at somebody instead of pat them on the back. And I want to just pat on the back of the VAs that I deal with, that they have been absolutely stupendous. And I'm
not all VAs are the same, some, yep.
It's kind of like a Baptist church.
I've dealt with great
or
ones
a Mormon
as well.
church.
Yeah.
This stake might be horrible, and this stake might be really good, and this Baptist church might be really good, and this Baptist church. So it's don't paint with too wide of a brush, and don't be afraid to go to the VA if you've heard horror stories about it.
Yeah.
Good.
Contempt prior to investigation. We've talked about this multiple times. Contempt prior to investigation. You cannot base your experiences on somebody else's. You may go, and here's an example. I've got a friend of mine that I was in Germany with, and she's here in Utah, and she has had horrible experiences with the VA. Now, I don't know what the circumstances are, but she has had absolutely horrible experiences here at the VA. And I have had absolutely miracles at the VA. I got diagnosed with my genetic condition, and I got the surgeries that I've needed. I've already had 4 surgeries, that I've really needed to help out with my genetic condition. I have had so much support. And so the reality is everybody's experience is going to be different. And so it's the same thing with religion, with spirituality, with sobriety, with doctors, with all
Teachers,
of this kind of
school,
stuff, with people,
everything.
anything. You cannot have contempt prior to investigation. And that means, saying, I'm not going to do this because of this, or this, right? You have to use your own experiences, because we all have our own experiences, our own tools, our own lessons that we have to learn. And so I feel like that is kind of a lot of, it goes along well with your story. Right? Just because you went through something, or just because somebody else went through it, you don't have to let that govern your choices and your experiences.
Well, it's kind of like prison wisdom. My kids, when they were growing up, hated every time I would say this. And the kids I work with, and even prisoners I work with, they hate it when I say it. But Delta Yankee Oscar Tango, do your own time. Don't do anybody else's time. Do your own time. Take responsibility for your life. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and this happened to so-and-so, so that's what's going to happen to me. Not necessarily. Do your own time and be willing to admit when you screw up.
Love it. Well, Jack,
yep. Okay.
Oh, no, go ahead and finish your thought, because, I was going to say, it's a good opportunity for you kind of say what you want to say at the end, and kind of, any last words you want to put out there. This is a good opportunity to go ahead.
Any advice you have for people? Any last minute nuggets of information?
After 40 years of nagging, I'm in counseling. I finally wrote a book a couple of years ago. It's basically a flyover of my life, and it stresses some of the things that we stress. It's like 110 pages long. Captured by Grace, Amazon. Grab a copy. And I'd like to challenge you to grab 2 copies, one for yourself and one to donate to a halfway house or a jail or a prison. And because my prayer is that God would use that book the way that first book that I read in a cell was an introduction to things higher than me. Secondly, when I got diagnosed with cancer, it kind of changed my ministry in some ways that I don't do the traveling I used to. So if you, as a listener, have an argument or a question, whatever, real simple, jack.hager@gmail.com. You're not an imposition. You're not I won't charge you, all that kind of stuff. It's what I do. And if you want to yell at me or scream at me or ask for help or ask for prayer, fire away. Anything else is just, as I tell people, that yes, there's a zillion religions, but my brother used to say, Jack, you're so stinking narrow-minded. And I'd say, yo, Bob, it's easy to be narrow-minded when you know you're right. There's a whole lot of things I'm not sure of, but I believe that when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life, no one comes to the Father by me. I believe narrow is the road that leads to eternal life. Wide is the road that leads, so I am narrow-minded about my faith. I cannot wink on that. I cannot compromise that. But that doesn't mean you have to share my faith or everything I believe about my faith in order for me to say, hey, you are my friend. Is there any way I can help?
I love that. Jack, it's been an honor having you here. And I wish we had all day to sit and talk, for hours and hours and hours. But I'm so grateful that you were here and willing to be transparent and honest and open with your own journey and willing to be raw and vulnerable with your beliefs and sharing them with us and encouraging other people to find theirs. And I cannot wait. I've got some networking opportunities that I'm going to chat with you. There's a couple podcasts I want you to get on. There's a couple other people that I want to connect with you. I will send you a networking invite. I am just so excited to work with you more. Bryan is...
I do a lot of these, not as many as I'd like to, but this has been wonderful, for me. I'm still processing that thing about being an Army brat, so be open to learn. You don't be cautiously open, trust but verify, etc. And as much as I hate to paraphrase, ask not what you can do. Ask not what other people can do for you. Ask what you can do for other people. I usually do that in a church context. Ask not what your church can do for you. Ask what you can do for your church. But we're in this thing together. And, obviously that there are things that are maybe more important to me than might be more important to other people, but still people are important. And there's nobody that is beyond the reach of Christ. There's nobody that's beyond the reach of my friendship if you're willing to do that. And, well, people suck, Jack. Yeah, I know that. I'm a Snoopyaholic, an unrepentant Snoopyaholic. I'm looking at a banner right now, line that says, I love mankind. It's people I can't stand. And sometimes it's easy to get in that rut. But I'm a people too. I'm a people too. So let's get together and let's be real, look each other in the eyes and listen aggressively.
Well, thank you so much. Bryan is going to finish us off. He's going to put you back in the back if you want to hang around for a few minutes and we can chat after it closes.
Will do.
Thank you, Jack. All right, friends and family, thank you guys for joining us. That was a great one. And there's so much we can learn from people that have lived life longer than yourself or, gone through things more than you. I mean, there's just so much you can learn, right? And Jack, I love how transparent he is. I love hearing his stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. As you can see, you may be at a place in your life and it feels like you're just stuck. Jack is a good story of showing you that just keep going, keep pressing. And sometimes you don't have to go searching for something. Sometimes it will find you, right? And when something finds you, you got to look at that as timing and that it's meant to be, right?
Most of the time, if we're trying to search for it, we're forcing it, and then there's going to be resistance. And so if you just kind of do what you feel is right, the right circumstances will come to you.
And sometimes when you're asking for something, the world will throw you off and it'll go totally against all of that because it wants you to be humble, right? So, uh, throws you through that kind of that trial and tribulation type of thing. But once again, you guys, just like Marie's shirt says, you are enough. You all are enough, and we all love you, and we want you guys to be around. If you guys would like to be a part of the show and come share your story, once again, you can email Marie at sliderbabe.com. Or you could also email me at everydaysasaturday365 at yahoo.com. But if you want to schedule yourself for the show, go ahead and go to sliderbabe.com as well. And we are booked. We are really booked.
We are
And,
booked for the year, so it will
yeah.
be January before
So
we
what
can.
we may do, this live thing's kind of cool, so we may start doing a once a month live, right? And that's an opportunity where maybe we could just bring on other folks that just want to come on and have a general conversation, and we can start getting involved with our listeners. So we'll stand by for that. We'll make sure that when we do this, that we put it out there, in good enough time, so that way people start to show up, and that way we can have that conversation. So if you do want to come and talk to us, and maybe you're afraid to come on the show, and you can just creep on us, or say hello on the chat side. But we thank everybody once again for following the show, and we hope you all are having an amazing day. Don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.